Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Storm. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, okay. Just been working. I've been putting together all like questions on a Big Five test, which should be quite cool.
Mm,
It takes a while to write out all the
oh, yeah.
different bits and pieces of them. Yeah, but what have you been up to today?
Let's see. Had to take my daughter to a doctor's appointment and then just working, trying to develop an app for the Psychology Junkies site and stuff that way. So just working away.
Okay, and what sort of app is that?
We're looking to have one that incorporates the different personality tests that we're creating so people can, um, have a quick, easy way to access it and then have it also filled with all the different descriptions of the different types and, some of the different categories, major categories that people are interested in understanding about their own type or anybody else's type, to just be able to look up and just more of a kind of informative app.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. And how is the division of labor between you and Susan in terms of running Psychology Junkies?
Well, honestly, she does probably 90% of the heavy lifting. I would
Mhm.
say she's the one with the knowledge base and background in all of this. I've kind of tagged along and picked up stuff over the years that she's been doing this and the conversations we've had. Um, I've been more of the technical kind of background person, just
Mhm.
because that's where my interests have been for years and years, and so I've just had a little more experience in that side of things. So it works out well because I get to
Mhm.
support what she's doing on the back end and help her put her best foot forward.
Okay. And when, oh, what do you do outside of Psychology Junkies?
I actually don't do anything. That's our sole source of income. So I mean, as far as work goes, that's it. That's what we do. Otherwise, I mean, the benefit is we both get to work from home, so we get to be with our kids, and just be a part of their life and you know uh, help them to have the best lives possible as well.
Very impressive. Generate quite an income from that. That's good. Oh, that's living the dream.
It's pretty nice.
Hmm. Okay. And so did you go to a university when you were younger?
I did.
Okay, and what did you study?
I studied lots of stuff because I could never settle on a major. Lots of things seemed interesting to me. I was able to knock out all my prerequisite classes and stuff pretty easily and quickly. And then, I mean, I dabbled in a lot of different things. I um, went for like forensics, I guess, criminal forensics, forensic chemistry. I went for, I just hopped around on my majors a lot just because, um, I don't know, once I started down the route of doing something, I'd be like, you know what, long term, I'm not sure this is something I really want to do. Once I started dabbling in it a little bit and learning a little bit
Mm.
more about the specifics, and so I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna jump to the next thing that looks interesting and try that out and see how it fits and whatnot. And I ended up actually not completing my degree um, because of that mainly, but I ended up joining the military, so that worked
Hmm.
out for me.
That's pretty cool. And what caused you to want to join the military?
It was always something that had been interesting to me. The idea, I always wanted to be, like in special ops or something like that. I loved watching action movies, and anything I could do to get closer to that seemed like a fun possibility to me. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that's kind of the focus, as well as the opportunity to kind of get out of my hometown and travel for free and see different things than I'd ever been, other places, and uh, yeah, so just all the whole concept of it seemed appealing to me.
Hmm. Okay. And when you were in the military, what was your role?
Well, I mean, I was enlisted, so I started, at the bottom. And my job was that I got. Well, I started as a special ops in training, and I got injured during training, and so then they put me into a new job for. They call it vehicle operations. So I mean, it's when we're deployed, we did like convoys through Iraq and stuff like that. And then when we're at home, we just support the base with whatever transportation needs they might need, whether it's buses or tractor trailers or forklifts or cranes or whatever it is. That was what we did.
Okay. Just let me know what is special ops, because I'm a bit ignorant of the terminology.
Okay, so it'd be like for the Navy, it would be for U.S. Navy. I know you're over in England, it's a little different, but it would be for us. It was like the Navy SEALs. That's a special operations group. For the Army, it could be the Green Berets. So it's the highly trained operatives that usually are the ones that go and do the behind enemy lines or missions that way.
Okay. And was that because of watching action films you wanted to join special ops specifically?
Oh, not specifically. That always appealed to me. I've always been an active person and always wanted to push my limits and see how far I could go. And so I just thought I'd try it out.
Okay. And what do you mean by pushing your limits?
Physically, I always never probably stopped when I maybe should have, whether it was, I don't know, as an example, when I was younger, I found out I could climb out through our rear garage window and get up on the roof. And once I found that out, I was constantly going out there and jumping off the roof of the garage and just tumbling down and, just messing around, just pushing the boundaries of maybe what would be considered safe.
Okay. Do you ever feel that you put yourself in danger?
No. I mean, I think I take calculated risks. I'm aware of what the risks are when I do it and what my plan would be to mitigate those risks if those things occurred. So it's not like I'm, it wouldn't be like if I'd never ridden a motorcycle trying to ride it off the edge of a cliff. I mean, that would be, that to me, that's, clearly a little too far. But, I mean, it depends. Maybe if I had a base diving parachute on, I might attempt it. But, I just try to figure out the best way to do it and see if I can.
Okay, so all that sort of physical tumbling and how to get from one place to another. Okay. And just looking back on the university approach, you said you're moving from across multiple different fields. What were the fields that you tried?
So there was, it's a long time ago. I have to try to remember all of them now. Well, chemistry, definitely. Some computer science, some basic broadcasting as far as like back end stuff, and web development. So just a whole bunch of different things, not necessarily all related or anything.
Okay, and what attracted you to each of those? Might be a bit difficult.
Okay, well, I'm always curious about things. I mean, when I was younger, we had an encyclopedia set, and I used to sit down and just leaf through it and stop on whatever looked interesting and read about it. And so, just kind of that curiosity. You see things portrayed, whether it's in shows or online, as being a certain way, like a TV show like CSI or something. It's like, oh, that looks really cool. Maybe I'd be interested in doing that job. It's not realistically portrayed. It's not as dramatic as they make it out to be, but it could still be a cool job. And so then you start down that path, and it's like, okay, I think it's interesting, but I don't know that it's something I want to go in depth for the rest of my life in doing.
Mm.
So for me, I get very focused on the details of something, and if I feel like it bogs me down from taking the next step to the next new thing, I lose interest then, because I am constantly kind of trying to find the new interesting thing to focus on and move forward with. So if a job's fast paced, then that's great for me. Like the military, that worked great because you never knew what you were going to do day to day. It was always different.
Okay. So lots of variety, lots of fast pace.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have much of a temper, Daniel?
I don't think so. I wouldn't say I do. I mean, I think everybody gets angry over things sometimes, but no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm constantly flying into a fit of rage or anger or anything.
And in your sort of daredeviling, in your pushing of limits, do you ever do that with people?
In what way? In how I communicate with them, in how I physically interact with them, all of the above.
Pushing the envelope?
I don't think I tend to with people. Not unless they show their own interest in doing something that way. In the military, there were plenty of other individuals who had similar interests or enjoyments or playing sports or things like that. And, so we would have a kind of a healthy competitiveness to see who could do what, better, faster, and try to keep beating each other's times or speeds or things. But, I was never something I don't like to push people. I'm kind of a live and let live person. If you want to do something, great. If not, that's your choice too.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. And so are you very close with the rest of your family? Not just the family you've created, but the family you've come from?
I wouldn't say I am, not terribly. I mean, I know for a fact I'm not super close to them. That's not something I'm trying to deliberate. It's more of I come from, my knowledge of personality type comes more from a Myers-Briggs system. And so I'm trying to decide if my explanation through that is going to make as much sense through Socionics system.
I would say just relate your experiences. It's better than getting caught up in the terminology.
Okay, fair enough. So my parents specifically tend to be fairly traditional in their approach to life and what they like, how they like to do things, and I'm not. And so I've always kind of felt different from the rest of my family. I never had any doubts that my parents or family loved me, but the way I liked to look at life and do things and the way they liked to look at life and do things were very different. And so it just made it kind of a natural progression for me to just kind of move on. I'm still in touch with them and everything, but it's not because of those differences. I don't think we tend to seek out each other's company frequently.
I see. No worries. And what was it about Susan that attracted you to her?
Well, she was motivated and driven. She had her own ideas for life and wasn't just a girl looking for a guy to take her away from wherever she was at. She had her own visions and goals for life. And so it was something where I didn't have to be that for her, and as well as when we started talking, we were both single parents, so it was something we had in common, and kind of a friendship that, it's hard for people who aren't in that situation always to understand the struggles that you face day to day.
I see. Okay, so you're a blended family rather than.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Okay. And in what situations are you at your most confident?
When there's a probably when something is needing to just get done and it's pressured, say like an emergency type situation. Okay. With the military, I've had some medical training and background. And so, if something's happening where that's the case, I just spring into action. I don't wait to see if somebody is going to ask for help. I'm not going to wait to see if somebody's going to assist me. I'll just take control of the situation and make happen whatever needs to happen. I've always enjoyed driving as well. And having done that in the military, I have a great confidence in my driving ability. So, if there's a challenge, whether it's, I like to drive fast. Not that I really do because of, legal limits, but, pushing the envelope in driving and seeing what is capable, that's something I feel fairly confident in my skills in that area as well. So very much in the physical world, just taking control of myself in it.
Thank you. And in what situations are you at your least confident?
Oh, probably when trying to understand or read people's emotions and understand why they're reacting a certain way. I prefer a straightforward, logical approach to things. So sometimes people's emotions can be tricky for me to understand always.
Okay. And what does straightforward, logical mean to you?
It means based on the hard facts, the data that's right in front of you, barring personal feelings or preferences, just making the decision on the circumstances that you're facing.
I see. Okay. What sort of things tend to irritate you the most?
Details. I notice all the details and little things. And when you have a family with 5 kids, the details have to be overlooked just for the survivability. And so that tends to be irritating to me when, I like things to be organized, put away, neat and orderly. Everything has a place. Everything gets put back as soon as you're done with it, kind of thing. And so, when there's, I don't know, a puzzle on the floor and a toy over here and Legos over there, and it just builds up on me.
A sort of disorderly environment. Okay. I see people already reaching conclusions.
Not surprised.
That's okay. Okay.
I mean, I have my own conclusions, but I'm curious, definitely curious to see what yours are.
Yes. This will be interesting. Okay. So, what should I ask? I wanted to. So yes. So once you left the military, what then did you do?
Actually, that was when we started the Psychology Junkie. My wife was actually working on it before I left the military. And with the way it had been going and the uptick in just the revenue we were able to create through it, we just decided to double down on that. Originally, I was going to go back to school to get a degree in something that maybe I could use to help benefit the business, whether it was web development or whatever. And ended up that things were going well enough, and I really didn't want to go back to school. I don't really like school, but the military would pay for it, so it was kind of a free thing that wouldn't be a bad to take advantage of. But things were going well enough that we just decided to see if we doubled down our efforts on it, if we would even need that to happen. And ends up we didn't, so we just kept going with it.
Okay. Did you start life out with a clear plan of where you wanted to go?
Oh no. No, definitely not. I would think of myself as opportunistic. And if something came up that seemed like a good idea that might head somewhat in the direction that I thought might be good or right, then I would just hop on that until either it stopped going the right direction or something better came along. So between the ages of 16 to 24, I changed jobs about once a year.
I see. Wow. So you had lots of, so okay, so what were you doing before you joined the military then?
Let's see. My first job, I was a small engine mechanic. So I worked for like a rental store that rented out equipment and just maintained it for them and helped customers understand how to use it. Everything from, like a weed whacker, lawnmower, all the way up to like bobcat, skid loaders, and stuff like that. I did some construction. I worked for about 3 different construction companies doing different things at each one. One of them was masonry. So we did the foundations and block walls and stuff for basements. Another one was remodeling. So we did some new builds. We did remodeling and lots of framing and finish work and stuff that way. I worked at UPS for a while. I have a friend that actually owned a restaurant that I went and was a manager at that for a while. Let's see what else. I worked at a car dealership for a while. So just all kinds of different stuff.
Okay. And what is it about that variety that you like to keep up?
The challenge of learning something new, finding it interesting and pursuing it. Once I feel like I've learned everything I could in the position, then the day-to-day continuing of just doing the same things, it just gets mundane and boring. So if a good opportunity comes along that is new and interesting, then I would rather do that. And seeing as how I had nobody depending on me at that time, it was just for me, then it didn't really matter whether I was really building a career out of it.
Are you someone who appreciates how people depend on you?
I like being dependable. I think that's an important trait. I don't think it comes natural to me. I think it's one of those things that, when you have kids and get married, that you kind of have to just incorporate into your life. Because I don't think I'd be able to live with myself if I let my family down and wasn't dependable in the way they needed me.
Okay.
Just kind of an internal value.
How do you like to show that you love your family?
Well, I guess my natural way is probably just through, I'm going off of the 5 love languages system. I think that's probably the best known, but like physical touch, I like to give my kids hugs, be close to them, have them sit on my lap, read them a book. I do try to consider what way they receive it best, and then provide it to them that way so that they're receiving the message that I care about them, not just that I'm giving it out.
Makes sense. Okay. And how have you challenged yourself recently?
Well, this app building is definitely a challenge for me. It's not something I've ever done before. And so it's requiring a lot of research and trial and error and growing some of my base knowledge, for programming and things to make everything work together. And so that's definitely a challenge.
And is research and trial and error how you'd normally go about a new challenge?
Yeah, I would say getting a base level understanding of what it is I'm dealing with, and then just start playing with it hands on.
I see. Thank you. Do you have many friends?
Depends on context. So I know a lot of people that before I joined the military, I was very close with and did a lot of stuff with. And then being gone from the area for 11 years and everybody's lives continuing on, you kind of lose those connections. And so I don't have a lot of people that I'm necessarily interacting with, but I know a lot of people and still have the ability to communicate and reach out.
Okay. So reaching out that's an easier thing for you, but sort of keeping close touch, is that harder?
I don't like to invade on people's lives. So if they're busy with their family and kids and things that way, I don't want to just assume that they're going to have this time to, bring the families together or do all these things, and it does take a lot more effort when you have more kids. I mean, I was single before I left for the military, so it was easy. You call up your buddies, you get together, you have a bonfire, you go bowling, whatever. It's not a big deal. But families become your focus, and that's just takes priority.
Okay. I think it's a bit early, but I thought maybe because you are someone who's quite typologically inclined, maybe we'll have more discussion times than normal. So I think I've reached a conclusion.
Okay.
Now, am I right in saying that you, like Susan, were thinking SLI for yourself?
Yes. She originally, I think, said, I don't remember what it was now. See, I'm still brand new to all the socionics terms to things. So I remember we said SLI seemed like the most accurate fit that we saw.
Okay. Now, maybe there's a problem with the way I've written some of my profiles, but I would say LSE would make more sense.
Okay.
So that's sort of like the extroverted version of the SLI. So again, still a Delta type, and in Delta, there's an emphasis on day-to-day practicality and a sense of good faith judgment, giving people a chance, wanting to grow and develop as a person, be the best that you can be, that sort of idea, doing a good job at what you're doing. So I don't think, and I think this is actually quite common in the crossover between Myers-Briggs and socionics, that a lot of people who type as MBTI ESTP will probably end up as the LSE rather than the SLE, although some ESTP would be SLE as well. A split there. But yeah, day-to-day practicality, I think, came out a lot in what you're talking about. This emphasis on you're challenging yourself in terms of doing tasks, learning about how it works. And once you've reached a point where you know everything about it, there's a desire to move on. There's as well as that desire to take in factual data, be more comfortable working with real technical stuff, even in the fields you're talking about across the university, you didn't quite find what they had in common. It seemed to me it was that practical, technical side, all scientific, nothing too arty-farty. And even now, you're happy to work behind the scenes with the technical stuff. You don't need to be up front and be this big, loud, impactful figure. It suggests that extrovert sensation and extroverted ethics aren't really valued. But I do see extrovert sensation in a big way as a demonstrative function. You like to learn via doing. You like to push your limits. You like to race cars quickly. You like a bit of that physical impact and thrill. You like the idea of things being very active, constantly changing in the here and now, because that's when it's most challenging for you and also where you're most confident in being challenged. So extrovert, there's a lot of extrovert sensation there. But at least according to socionics definition, it's not a valued thing. It's more demonstrative. Instead, it's that sort of practical how to do things in the day-to-day. And what will be unusual for an SLE is that balance between extroverted sensation and introverted sensation. You have a fluid interplay between both. Not only do you like the sort of impactful in the moment experiences and doing things in here and now, but also there's that awareness of sort of the flow and harmony of details. You come across actually being quite gentle, as well as being very proactive and impactful. You don't have that sort of harsh, more aggressive edge. Now, you could lose your temper, of course. Maybe that could be quite a scary thing, but you're not. There's far more emphasis. The decision to place the emphasis on the nurturing side to you, and so I see both extrovert sensation and introvert sensation together. Now, the way Jung would say, if you got extrovert sensation, you'd suppress introverted sensation. If it's one's your leading function, the other be your ignoring function, far less present. Whereas, at least in socionics, you have the idea that your creative function, the second one, a bit like an auxiliary, when that's there, there's a fluid interplay with its inverse. That becomes a demonstrative function. So both sorts of sensation are present, I think, supporting the extroverted logic and taking in factual data, how to do things, how to make things better. And how you approach a project, it's very much a sort of trial and error, tinkering approach, much like a Thomas Edison figure, that you're seeing how it works, testing it, learning from that. You don't have a set plan of how it's going to turn out. Andy, when I asked you about any sort of long-term strategy, how things will go, you seem to reject that immediately. No long-term plan. There seems to be no seeking out of introverted intuition. It seems to be almost a total blind spot. And instead, there's that secondary motivation of actually growing out in different areas, trying out new things, opening up new possibilities, not feeling limited. So it makes sense to me that extrovert intuition would be in the mobilizing function. And as for introverted ethics, it seemed to be the weakest but still valued thing. And that, you can feel a bit surprised at people's reactions to things, but more importantly, that when it comes to having your military friends and other people you've known, yes, you know lots of people, you can reach out to people should you feel the need to. You don't feel worried about that sort of more extroverted ethics side of actually engaging with others. But you're sort of quite cautious in terms of, I don't want to impact on their time too much. They got their own thing, I want to leave them to their own devices. There isn't much sign of you proactively maintaining closeness in your relationships, which suggests to me that out of the valued information elements, introverted ethics is there, but it's the weakest of the four. I think it makes most sense as a suggestive function. And this is how I tell it apart between LSE and SLI. SLI, their introverted ethics is more present. They'll be more focused on keeping close to people who they are already close with. They'll be far less able to make new friends or more friends, because their extroverted ethics is basically vacant, basically gone. And they'd be far less proactive in their extrovert intuition, trying out new experiences. They find their comfort zone, and they're far more likely to stick to that. And they may, go off and try things and learn new skills in a more limited sort of way. It's more about refining and mastering rather than spanning out in breadth. And there's a lot of breadth to you rather than necessarily depth in the focus. So, yeah, those are my reasons for thinking that LSE make most sense. Do you have any questions about that?
No, I'm looking forward to reading some more about it and see how it fits and plays in, and see which one I feel like is more accurate, whether the LSE from Socionics or ESTP from Myers-Briggs. It'll be fun to compare.
Now, it's funny you say that, because I think it makes sense you fit ESTP very well in Myers-Briggs. And I think that the way the extrovert sensation is described in Myers-Briggs, it has mixes of various things we'd imagine in an LSE. So focus on concrete facts. The extroverted thinking is already going to be in there, and how to do things. There's that mixture of sort of freeness and openness to experience, which in sociology would look at, okay, some extrovert intuition there, but also some extrovert sensation in terms of it being very practical and very much day-to-day focus and the physical concrete things. So a lot of the different things you have there can be described under extroverted sensation.
Sure.
In Myers-Briggs terminology. So, yeah.
No, it's very interesting to see the nuances that each different system brings into their descriptions, because you do see some mixtures combined from different ones to describe, and so it's to me the system is interesting. Something that I've never quite for any of the systems. I feel like mentally I've never gotten it all organized in a way that makes sense to me. I understand how it's communicated, and this is something that Susan and I have talked about a fair amount, is that a lot of the information put out for all of these systems is done by intuitives because they're driven by the theory, and me being a sensor trying to organize it in the sensor's way, sometimes it just doesn't quite click for me the way it's presented. So I'm like trying to kind of explore all these different things and figure out how to make it align and make sense from my perspective. So it's always interesting to pull from different types, whether it's Myers-Briggs or socionics or whatever, and Enneagram even, and adding that into the mixture, and see how they all have similarities and differences and where those are and why they are, and saying, I feel like somehow, someday, something's just going to click for me. I'm going to finally get that last piece of information and be like, oh, if you organize it this way, there's this like perfect flow or something. I don't know, but that's what I'm waiting for.
I think there's something you said about moving away from the abstracted theoretical definitions of things to the practical, seeing how it actually works, seeing it in action. I think that's something which certainly an LSC would take in more readily and more enthusiastically. And the question is finding that, seeing those real examples. It's interesting that approach, because it is also, again, very open, very, very practical. It's different to say one of my SLE friends who has taken this view that no, we need to very clearly and absolutely define everything in socionics if it's completely ironclad, and then we must make sure it's completely different to any other theory so that no one confuses it. And this putting down the iron girders, as it were, and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very different approach to what you're suggesting, which is looking at lots of different approaches and trying to find a more holistic flow.
Right.
Which, another interesting thing about the different types in socionics, we look at holistic or dynamic types versus static types. Your approach seems far more dynamic in that holistic way. It's whatever seems to work and come together, rather than laying down a very clear structure where things go. Although saying that, when you're actually in your house and things are messy and there's clutter, that's when you do get a bit irritated.
Right.
And things need to still be in their sort of place. There needs to be a certain, is it an aesthetic or a certain physical convenience around you, and things mucking up that convenience can bother you.
Yeah, I feel like for me, once I actually figure out where something should go, where it makes the most sense and has the most value in that position, then that's where it should just always be. Because it's going to make the most difference, the most impact for what it is in that place. So for the most part, if I don't know where something should go or what it should be or how to define it, I'll just let it be until I figure that out.
I see. And then when it's out, it's like the machine that you've put together as your house is broken slightly. There's a piece missing.
Out of place.
Yeah.
But we all have to be flexible, or else people don't get along.
True.
So.
Okay. So I'm sort of half apologetic. This took so less time. I don't know. Did you still have more time if you want it? Is there anything else you want to ask me?
Oh man. See, I know if my wife was on here, she'd probably have like a million different questions, but I'm like just more straightforward. Well, you told me this, I'm gonna go look at it, and we'll go to I'll go onto your site and read what you've written about it and see how it how it connects. I'll go look at Johannes. I know he's written some stuff on socionics. See what he has to say about that type and where they're similar or different, and just start doing the research and hands-on comparison. That's just
sounds good.
my approach. So
okay. I think let's move forward on that basis. Let's see if anyone here has any questions for Daniel. Maybe that would be good. Does anyone else have any questions for Daniel? Oh, your chill ISFJ says, do you like Daredevil?
I do. As far, but the problem I have with it is the accuracy. I get that Daredevil is. I'm assuming she's talking about the show.
Yeah, I think so.
I get that it's a superhero. So it's not exactly bound by the limits of reality. But that's always bothered me. The idea of somebody who's blind seeing the way a bat would when that comes back through hearing. The logic behind it feels broken to me. So it robs me a little bit maybe of the enjoyment. But I think he's a very interesting character. And in general, I like the DC characters and their story arcs and how they've done their integration with all their different characters. So I do enjoy the show. I do enjoy watching it. But there's always just a little part of me that feels a little let down to the accuracy of how it would actually work.
Okay. Let's see, there's something else here someone asked. Do you hate being bored or hate instability in everyday life?
I hate being bored. I can deal with instability for the most part, because I tend to compartmentalize things. So if it's not something I can take an action on, even if it needs to be solved, I can just set it aside until the opportunity or the information or the resources come available to deal with it. So inactivity and having nothing to do, being bored, would drive me nuts.
I see. Yes, wasting what you could be doing in that moment. I see. Are you into motorsports? That's from Austin.
I would like to be. I contemplated trying to start a rally team when I was much younger, rally car racing. But not coming from a background of it or having any connections in it makes it kind of prohibitive because it's not exactly a cheap sport to get into. So I don't really watch it because I would rather be doing it. So yes, I like the idea of it. I think I would love to race. I think it would be a lot of fun. Very much a wonderful adrenaline rush. But no, I've never actually done it.
Okay. From the introverted thinker, do you have a pile of unorganized stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, my desk is horrendous, which is why I'm not doing this interview in my room.
Well, why is it that you get bothered by things in your house being out of place, but your desk is a mess?
Because the things on my desk that are unorganized don't have a place. So it's okay for them to be fluid. But if there is a place for something, that's what I want put away.
I see. Okay. So that's your designated area for unorganized things.
For just all the random stuff that I'm going to get to someday when I find the right place for it. Yep.
Okay. Fate's asking a question, but I don't think Dan's going to be able to answer that because you want to know what you think about certain two socionics types. You need to know more about the types for that. Okay, let's say, I don't know, how do you interact with INFJs in your experience? But I know it doesn't.
How do I interact with them?
Yeah. What do you think about INFJs?
I mean, I'm married to one, so I think they're pretty wonderful. I mean, we're considered each other's duals. So I mean, that's got its benefits, and it's also definitely got its challenges. because our valued functions are exactly opposite. And so it's easy to see what the other person is valuing as being wasting time, because they're focusing on the things that don't matter to you in your perception. On the other hand, because I know that's my weak area, I also really appreciate the insight that it can bring. Suse is really, really good with kind of the long-term plans and seeing the past patterns and how they're probably going to play out to the future. And I'm horrible at that. I made a joke on Twitter when it was she'd asked a question about how you thought things would go during like a zombie apocalypse. And I was like, I'm going to be the guy that can slay them all, set up an area, a safe zone, and realize 3 months later that I was 500 yards to the left too far, because I just can't project that what's really going to be needed long term that well. I can handle the in the moment situations probably as well or better than most people, but that long term planning. So, as an example, sorry, I'm like getting distracted by some of these comments. It's funny, yeah. So her ability to do that is definitely, I see the value in it and appreciate that for sure.
Okay. Now it's interesting because assuming, and I think we should certainly not assume that, but assuming that Susan is that her cognitive functions translate directly into the information metabolism elements of socionics, assuming that actually works, which it doesn't. But assuming that, you'd actually be conflictors.
Oh, would we? Okay.
But that's the funny bit, because we've now turned you into the socionics ESTJ.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Fine. I think most people think it's unlikely that Susan's going to be an IEI, but we'll see when it gets to her interview what type she actually is. Okay. What else is here? I think there was something else. What attribute do you dislike in a person?
Attribute do I dislike? Probably most is going to be overly self-confident, or maybe arrogant, self-important, people who seek out attention just for the sake of having it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite anti-beta then. Okay. Now this is the interesting thing. Okay, so do you do much of celebrity types?
I don't.
Okay. Are you? I know that different MBTI people have typed Donald Trump differently. I think people tend to say he's either an ESTP or an ENTJ. Most people seem to agree on him being ESTP, but he seems to show exactly the sort of self-importance and attention-seeking nature, which, I don't know, that seems to be something which you probably wouldn't like.
No, I wouldn't. I think that there's different health levels to people's functions and capabilities of displaying them. And so if you're an unhealthy type, if he's just for instance, I'm not saying he is, but say he's an unhealthy ESTP, that might be a way that he's trying to overcome maybe weak TI or something that way, as opposed to actually having the answers, trying to kind of bluff his way by seeming bigger than life and taking all this attention to where people just accept his knowledge. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination, but that's that's just, you know, my kind of for instance as to why maybe he is an ESTP, but just displays differently.
Interesting. Yeah, fair enough. I've wondered because he has actually, in terms of health, I imagine someone usually grows rather than necessarily gets worse as they get older, unless of course they end up going a bit senile. Mm-hmm. But it has seemed to me that in later life, he's been a lot more inclined to this than when he was younger. And almost like he's grown in that, getting more attention, plastering on things. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point in terms of health. I think you have to have a certain amount of stuff together to become the president, but not necessarily. I know Richard Nixon wasn't the healthiest chap either.
No, definitely not. And I mean, I think part of it has to do with your environment and how you're raised and what your resources are. You know, he's, I would say, been fairly isolated from reality. And so maybe some of the natural growth that we would assume the average person would have, he might not, because of his access to money and being able to have things his way. You know, is definitely going to have an effect, if that's been the way it's been for his whole life, as to how he actually does develop.
Okay, that's interesting. Does Susan have any blog posts on health in type?
I don't think she has in that aspect, as far as, I'm trying to think. She's written like over 300 blog posts, so it's hard for me to keep track of all of them. Wow. So yeah, it's that's, I mean, I can go on her site and definitely search for it. I know she's talked about like physical or mental health instability and weaknesses, tendencies on type. But as far as like the health of your actual functions, I don't know that she's actually written one on that.
Okay, no, fair enough. It is something which I'm quite interested in at the moment. I've been doing so much sort of popularizing sociomics. I've had as much time as I like to work on some new groundwork with it. And I think one area which will be very interesting is seeing how hype develops over time in someone, what certain arcs they may go through in their journeys and their discoveries and their areas of growth. So that'd be interesting for me to look at.
Yeah, I know she's looked at how it develops, what some of the natural tendencies and development is from the Myers-Briggs perspective. You know, that you tend to rely on your primary function, and when you're younger, that's all you know. And you know, and each function kind of develops over time. But yeah, as far as the health level, I don't know. She's on here watching, so maybe she can correct me. I don't read her blog. Sometimes I read your blog.
Yeah. He doesn't read your blog. No worries. Okay, good. I think those are all the questions for me. Is there anything else, or shall we wrap up? Yeah, I can't see any more questions. So yeah, let's wrap up then. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on and being interviewed. It was a real treat.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It was fun to chat with you. I look forward to whenever you get a chance to talk with Susan and see what you come up with for her.
Now, I look forward to that as well. I think it could be very interesting to see what comes out, because I don't think, just from talking online, I don't think IEI for Susan, so I don't think you're going to be conflictors, but we shall see.
Oh, good.
Okay. All right. Take care now.
Thanks, you too.
Day. And thank you everyone else for tuning in. Bye-bye.